So I think Nikhil Jaisinghani is going to be our next speaker. He's an entrepreneur who co-founded Value Development Initiative, a Nigeria-focused energy infrastructure company, and Mera Gao Power, an Indian company that builds and operates microgrids in North India. He received a BA in physics from the University of Virginia and MA in international relations from the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. So, Nikhil.
Good afternoon. I want to say thank you to Reliance and GCEP both for inviting me here. It's an exciting opportunity to participate in this discussion. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to at least start to talk about a company that my business and I started called Mera Gao Power. At some point, I'm probably going to get distracted and start talking about a few other things, and if that happens, please forgive me. The MGP, Mera Gao Power MGP, we're a lighting utility company, and there's two important things to mention about that before I move on to the presentation. First is that we are a utility company, which means that we don't sell products. We provide a service to customers. They pay. Just as we pay our power bill, they pay a bill to us on a regular basis. They don't have to pay the upfront cost of providing electricity to their homes. And that makes a big difference for our customer base because we're dealing with very poor people. I know an earlier presentation said the poor can afford products. And certainly it is true that they can, but the truth is that they prefer not to. And the evidence suggests that right now, when people have access to products, even products that will impact their lives, they still tend to choose not to purchase them because of the upfront costs associated with buying a product. A service alleviates that problem. We have much higher uptake for our services than a product company does, given our exposure to a particular customer base. The second thing is that we're a lighting utility company. The service we provide is not power, it's light. It's light and mobile phone charging. We call ourselves a lighting utility company. And that's important because, of course, we love the idea of providing full-scale power to people in off-grid villages. But when we started looking at what we wanted to do, we knew we had to do this in a commercially viable way. And we still have not found a commercially viable way of providing full-scale power to off-grid villages. However, when you look at priority services to our customer base, what they want more than anything and what they're willing to pay for, you come down to a few services which we can provide very cost effectively and in a commercially viable way. And that's where we found a really nice combination between services that have value added to our customer base, but that they can also afford and make us a viable company. Anyone seen anything like this before? It's a kerosene lantern. So when we talk about off-grid households, people, the sun goes down at the end of the day, people still have to do something at home at night, or at least some nights. So they have to burn something, they have to produce light in some way, and usually what they do is they use a kerosene lantern. In India and in sub-Saharan Africa, kerosene lanterns are very, very typical. They are dirty, you can see, I mean, it's actually very dim here, but you can see from this that trying to do anything with this kind of light is really, really difficult. I lived in an off-grid village in Nepal for a few years, and I had to live with one of these at night. And trying to read my book, I would have to switch. I'd have to move my book from one side of the flame to the other when I switched pages, because I would not be able to read 6 inches across my book by that flame. That's how bad we're talking about. That's how dim these lights are. They're dirty, and kerosene is also expensive. Even though it's subsidized, it's still expensive. We've got about 400 million people in India that are living off-grid or living without electricity. They're all using those types of kerosene lanterns. When you look at the map of India, I don't know how well you can see it here, but the darker the colors represent the higher portion of people who are living off-grid. And you can see from this map that that's primarily North India. UP and Bihar in particular have massive populations. UP is about 250 million people and Bihar is 100 million people, and they're both dark green, which means a lot of people off-grid. So these are enormous markets. When you look at the product companies, they tend to focus on the south. Even though the demand is smaller, the people are able to pay more in the south. A lot of the companies said they have no interest in going to the north, even though the enormous population there, because that population is not willing to afford a product. So this is just an idea to give you an idea of what these rural villages look like. I'm not going to dwell on this, but you can see that they're rural, agrarian, they're remote. People are using very, very basic structures for their houses. You've got thatch houses and mud brick. I've covered this already. So this is what we do. We go into villages that don't have electricity. And as I said, we're a lighting utility company. So we build a microgrid within these villages to provide them with basic services. It's an investment on behalf of the company. Our company owns all of that infrastructure. The customer does not pay for it. We invest it on the assumption that we're going to get customers on that system. And we install solar panels on top of someone's house. We put batteries in a cabinet. And you can see this is a very, very small bit of infrastructure. We would lay distribution lines across that village and then connect lights that work at night to that distribution system. So you're looking at a very, very small bit of infrastructure which we're putting into a village. This is sufficient for a village of about 50 households. Costs us about $900, and it can provide 7 hours of light to households within a 50 household village. That makes us the lowest cost microgrid operators that we know of. And in addition, because we're solar-based, even though solar is typically expensive, our CapEx is low, but it also means our OpEx is very low. And that's important because by reducing our operational expenses, not only are we becoming a better company, more commercially viable company, it means that we have to spend a lot less time focusing on keeping our systems running, and we have a lot more time then to focus on building new systems. So when you're looking at sustainability is one thing, but what we're looking for, what the people in this room are looking to do, we're looking for scale. Solutions that have the ability to scale are incredibly important. So we've got, to date, we've built about 300 of these systems, 300 villages that we have operational right now. We expect to be in about 1,000 villages by the end of this year, so in about 8 months, and we expect to double that again next year. So our pace of growth should increase pretty dramatically over the next few years, which to me tells us that we at least believe that we have a scalable model, and that we believe is very important. As I said, it's the lowest cost microgrid in operation. 4 staff can go into a village and build a system in a day. Wake up at 8 a.m., take the equipment out. By the end of the day, that village has electricity, right? That's a one-day turnaround for a village to be electrified. And the systems are fully automated. Again, that goes back to the operational simplicity, which means that we can focus on scale. All right, so at this point, I'm going to deviate a little bit. We sound like a power company, right? Everything I've talked to you about up to this point is about energy. It sounds like an energy company. It sounds like a power company, but operationally, we have no resemblance to a power company. If you talk to someone at Tata Power, and ask them, or Reliance Power, should be more context appropriate here. But if you ask someone from a traditional power company what it is they do, you will hear words and phrases and this description which will be very, very clearly power sector. That is not us. If I were to replace the service that we provide with just a service and describe what we do operational, this is what we do. We build systems that provide a service to customers in rural villages, but 90% of our operations are focused on collecting money from a large network of customers in distributed rural remote villages. Those payments are collected in cash, they're collected quickly, and have to be done in a cost-effective manner. That's what our operations are. Does that sound like power? It sounds like something though, right? Microfinance. We're just another microfinance institution. We're a microfinance institution that has a different service. That's it. We are a microfinance institution at our core. The interesting thing is that we have been able to build a business out of innovations and a lot of sweat that the microfinance industry put in over the last 2 decades. We're building off of their innovations. That's one of the reasons the importance of others' innovations to our business was one of the reasons that when we designed our system, we didn't file for IP. We figured if we can build off someone else's innovations, let someone else build off ours as well. We didn't build it because we didn't file for IP because we wanted to see other people replicating and improving our model as well. It's something that I think over the next few years we'll see how well that plays out, and I think if my investors were in the room right now, they'd be covering their faces. But unfortunately for them, it's already gone past our window for filing, so there's nothing they can do about it. But the ability to add on to others' innovations is really important. We're building off of MFI collection processes. Obviously, all the technology we build that we use is something someone else has developed. If I go back to this and just showing you, I mean, this isn't the greatest description of what our systems look like. How many people think you could go into a village with this equipment and build a system that provides basic electricity services to a village? Raise your hand if you think so. We've got a room full of smart, confident people. And I know that there's more people out there that think they could do this. To be honest, almost every one of you could. Everything that we added to this space, we did early on. I mean, this is not a complicated system. What we did in terms of adding value to this space was we changed the question. We said, instead of saying, how can we provide power to villages or to off-grid villages, we said, what kind of energy services do people want and how can we provide them with that? Once we changed the question, the solution was simple. And this installation is really simple. It's all plug and play. I know nothing about solar and I designed this system. So I know that all of you could do it too. Right? It's important because again, that leads to this 4 staff putting in a system in a day. It also means that there's going to be a lot of other people who also are confident they can do it. And hopefully they'll be confident enough to think that they can do it better than me, because that's when we're going to really develop a sector that's going to thrive. In addition to the microgrid technology, there are some other things that we have. We've already talked about cash collections. We've got a database that we use that's a field level database that we enter in all those collections into at the end of the day, very much like a microfinance institution would. And again, just as many MFIs are moving towards mobile apps, mobile technologies to manage their collections, we have a mobile app as well that collectors can use when they go out to the villages. Tells them how much customers owe. It allows them to enter that they've paid and move on to the next village, and syncs with our database at the end of the day. It just simplifies the processes. But again, very much like an MFI. So this is I jumped the gun. This is the point where I'm supposed to tell you that we look like an MFI. You can see that we basically employ a lot of people to go out to villages every day on a very scheduled path, going to villages, collecting money from customers, coming back at the end of the day. The big challenge for us is making sure that money comes back to us and the end of the day doesn't disappear. The social side of this. Okay, so there's 2 important things. We're a social enterprise. That means that there's got to be a social element, there's got to be an enterprise element. I'm not sure if either of you are convinced of either as of yet. So I'm going to make the argument now that we're both social and commercially viable. These are some of our customers. We've had customers that are able to operate shops late into the night. We have customers who make saris at night and able to sell them to large retailers or wholesalers in Lucknow. We've got people who are simply happy to have a better environment in which to do their daily chores. We've seen people staying up later to do more work. It makes their days easier. It means that they are more productive. Sometimes that translates into income. Sometimes it means more stuff getting done around the house. We've seen children studying more, and we've measured that children are studying more as a result of receiving our service. And that's the important thing. It's not just an assumption. The parents are telling us when we do surveys, we find that parents in the households that we provide light to are reporting that their children spend about 50% more time studying. So now the economic side, the commercial viability side. And in fact, I'm going to talk more about commercially attractive than commercially viable. Commercial viability means you have an IRR that's above 0. For me, commercial attractive is something that tells you should invest in us instead of investing in oil and gas. The For a block level, that's a single block of a district. We would expect to put in about 300 systems, serving about 300 villages. These are rupees, so if you don't mind doing the translation, it's about $300,000 for 7,500 customers, a little bit conservative there. Our revenue then would be just short of $200,000 per year, and our operating costs about $40,000 of that. So we've got a repayment period, projected repayment period at that block level of just about 2 years. And if you assume that the grid's not coming for 5, then you can see an IRR that's pretty attractive, about 30%. So our growth objectives, I touched on this. We're trying to get to 1,000 villages by the end of this year, 25,000 customers, double again, a little bit more than double by the end of next year. We're going to be raising debt financing for that. We believe that because we look like an MFI, we should be able to raise debt like an MFI. We're trying to convince banks that they should see us that way as well. It's a big challenge for us. But we are scaling up. We've been pleasantly surprised. I, at one point, had an interview in early 2012 where I said by the end of 2012, our goal is to have 15 villages served. And by the end of the year, we had 150 villages served. So our ability to scale is proving itself. Customers are happy. They're signing up. They're paying. We're pretty excited about where we are. We've got a lot of challenges coming ahead, but we're facing them optimistically. So I'm going to open the room for questions at this point. I'm a little short on time, ending a little early, but I'm going to open up for questions. The operating costs are primarily collections. We also have a customer service line. So when customers have a problem, they call in that customer service line. Report a problem. We send out a maintenance electrician out to resolve problems. But for the most part, we don't have a lot of calls, particularly not this time of year. Reason being, it's a fully automated system. It generates its own power. It distributes power when it's supposed to on its own. So we don't have to have a lot of manpower operating any particular facility, which is why the operating costs are so low. So there's a little bit of maintenance, but primarily it's on collections.
Now, what is the cost per kilowatt hour for your operation?
Zero.
Yeah, so
I don't have the slide. The zero. We don't charge for the energy. To those villages, if the grid comes, then if it takes us a day to put in a system, it takes us only about 3 hours to take the system out. We lose about 30% of that value, so about $300 is lost in terms of its labor and transport. But 70% of that $1,000 or $900 goes back into inventory. So it's simply we move it to a new village.
What is it that you charge for?
It's a flat rate. It's 25 rupees a week. And what we charge for are the convenience fees, which means that we go to customers to collect. If you are a grid customer, you actually have to go to the grid to pay them. So we come to the customer to collect. We have an access fee, which basically means that we maintain the full system. We have the customer service associated with that. We make sure that the systems are all fully repaired and fully operational. And then we rent the equipment that goes into the customer's households. We've built our system to have a 3-day autonomy and 50% excess generation capacity specifically to operate through the monsoon. But if anyone from UP or from North India, UP Bihar, so you probably know that the toughest time of year is not monsoon. It's December, January when the fog comes in. So but it's built to work year round, even through bad weather.
Actually, there's something ironical about the system itself. I mean, if you look at North India, especially the areas that have lack of grid, these are the areas that actually have the highest amount of resources in terms of the water and also in terms of the power plants and all that, right? UP, Bihar, and Orissa. But the only reason why they are not having the grid connectivity is because all the power that's generated there tends to be, transferred to Delhi to meet the needs of the rich. The whole idea is because they feel that people cannot afford it, so they are like last on the line, right? So, I mean, that's something that we also need to think about.
Well, it's true that they can't afford it. No one in rural India can't afford electricity. They're not paying for electricity, and that's across India. Electricity is heavily subsidized in India. If we were actually asking people to pay commercial rates for the power that they're consuming, which includes not just generation but transmission and distribution infrastructure, you would see most people opting out of grid electricity. It's simply not. It's not a commercially. It's not an interesting, attractive offering. In addition, if you're getting electricity in a rural village right now, you are only getting it for 3 or 4 hours a night. And when I say night, I usually mean about 1 a.m. to 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So you're not getting when you need it. You're getting a poor quality service, and it's heavily subsidized. So it's not a commercial opportunity right now to provide grid electricity to off-grid villages. It costs the grid more to extend the grid just in terms of the poles than it does for us to install our entire system. On top of that, the distribution companies have no idea how to collect money from rural villages. They have no idea what it takes to get money out of their customers. And what that means is that the entire value chain is looking at this population as an unviable population to serve. And as long as that's the case, then grid extension is simply going to be politically motivated rather than economically.
Hello.
Yeah, thanks. If you had a wish list for technology improvements for the panels, for the batteries, for the lights, what would it be that would make your business even more viable, more successful, more durable, lower cost?
We're seeing panel prices come down pretty significantly, but our battery prices are going up. We'd love to see battery prices obviously come down. We'd love to see prices not come down, but battery prices are significant. And if we could get those prices down, that would be great. If we could get more storage capacity per system in, that would also be beneficial to our operation. So if we could spend the same amount of money to get greater capacity or spend less money to get the same capacity, that would probably be the biggest thing. In terms of lights, our assumption was brighter lights would be something that our customers would prefer. We've actually put brighter lights out in our villages, and customers have told us to turn them off. It's still a question as to how the service would have to change in order to be more attractive to our customers. But I think in addition, there are, beyond the microgrid idea, I think when we look at these villages and look at what offerings could be made in a commercially viable way, we're looking at efficient irrigation, entertainment, things that don't necessarily have to be integrated into our grids, but could be complementary services that we could provide. And we're looking at different ways to do all of those things.
Are you also looking at, or are the customers also asking you for things like fans or?
Well, it's May, so now they are. But in a few months, they won't be. And even when they're asking for it for free. They're not asking they're not willing to pay. Our customers are not willing to pay for additional services. We found the unique services of lighting and mobile phone charging. And I haven't touched on the mobile phone charging, but the mobile phone charging is actually incredibly important. People are not using their phones to communicate. They're using their phones to listen to music and watch movies on. It's the cheapest multimedia device in the market right now.
How do you ensure security of these devices? I mean, you're having these off-site installations. Typically, large companies have a lot of difficulty in maintaining security of whatever equipment we install remote sites. How do you ensure security of these systems?
So there's two things that go into that. One is that because we have a very small system, we can put our system on and in existing households. So the fact that the panels are on someone's roof means that really the only person who has access to those panels is that household. It's a lot harder for people to come in. Okay, so the other thing is that the village itself is of course, it's unlikely that someone within that village is gonna loot the system, because then they immediately lose service, and they're not gonna get away with it as well. But what you're more likely to see is someone from outside the village coming in at night trying to take the components. But by nature of it being on someone's house, by nature of the batteries being in their house, it's a lot more difficult for them to do that. If we were installing our systems out in a field that at night no one was around, that would be a different thing altogether. But because the system is small, it's because it's integrated within the village, because it uses existing infrastructure, it's actually fairly secure.
Yeah, let's give Nikhil a big round of applause. It's a very interesting discussion.